It's time for Reason.
If you have a $200, $300, $400 cell phone bill every month for you and the family, then you have a problem because we're paying you what the market actually sets for you and for your job skills. We're paying market value for you, and you're not going to manipulate the market on what the value of your job is just because you can't figure out your own personal budget. That's on you. That's not on me. We need to remember that we need to take on personal responsibility.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas. Right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. What's happening? Welcome in. Happy Wednesday morning. Isn't it kind of nice? Isn't it kind of nice? We already see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're already halfway there. We see the weekend right around the corner. The pre-Friday celebration begins tomorrow, which means today is the pre-Friday celebration right here on KQAM. Welcome in, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK, 8 minutes past the hour. Welcome in and good morning to you. Better than a cup of coffee. Let's get you started and excited for the day. Let me tell you something. I never thought that social media would have so much of an impact when it comes to our day-to-day activity. Never in my dreams did I think that social media would actually have this much of an impact when it comes to official statements being made. You would think that what you do on your Twitter account, half people would be like, oh, did she say something? And other people, oh, I didn't really see anything, whatever, and you move along. Twitter now has become the platform for official statements. If you remember some of the conversations we've had about the media attacking President Donald Trump with his Twitter account and the comments we've had, whether he should be silenced on Twitter, what he's saying on Twitter, is it important about what he says on Twitter? Is it if with him blocking individuals from Twitter, is that a violation of the First Amendment? Twitter all of a sudden became the platform. And I just don't get it because I hate Twitter. I really do. 160 characters, 180 characters, whatever it is, where you do this and you tweet it and then that's it. And then you go on these ridiculous, absurd arguments and debates when you can't explain anything. I mean, one thing I like about Facebook, I guess, is that you can rant on with a complete biography if you want to, and an entire story or an entire comment section if you want to, and you can go on as long as you want. Now it's whether the other person will actually read it or not, but you can actually explain something and it makes sense then, and you can read it and you can digest it and then you can banter and you can go back and forth. Twitter, you can't do that unless you go tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet, which I do sometimes. But now all of a sudden, everybody's so focused on Twitter, and maybe that's the way we're going because we have a short attention span. We don't want to read everything like that, so we just go on to Twitter. We just, there's my 100 characters. Bam, bumper sticker comment, baby. I'm an expert. Yeah. And now we see what's happening with Roseanne. And if you want to comment on Roseanne, you're more than welcome to. I want to hear from you. 316-721-8255. Here's my take on this. Because, of course, this is what everybody's going to be talking about all day long today, so we might as well jump into it, and we might as well scoop everybody else and get the right analysis on this before everybody else tries to muddy up the situation and muddle their way through a commentary when it comes to Twitter and Roseanne Barr. First off, this is not a First Amendment issue. Let's just throw it out there right there. It is not a First Amendment issue. This is not the government coming down on Roseanne Barr and saying you're not allowed to send out that tweet. We will arrest you now for the comments that you made on social media. This is not a First Amendment issue. Just like it is not a First Amendment issue when the NFL begins to kneel and they're quote unquote violating their freedom of speech if we tell them they're not allowed to kneel during the national anthem. It is not a First Amendment issue. If we're going to talk about these issues, we have to be fair across the board. We have to be consistent across the board. It is not a First Amendment issue. Show of hands, how many people do you think over or under when it comes to how many do you think are actually going to comment today and say, oh, this is a violation of her First Amendment. She made a tweet and now she's losing her job because of it. It's not the case. Second off, we need consistency across the board. How many individuals have been making ridiculous, absurd comments as comedians, quote unquote, name calling, trashing, picking fun, whatever, on both sides of the aisle. And how many of them have lost their jobs? How many of them done it on their actual media platforms? And we'll talk about that in just a second as well. ABC has all the right to cancel her. ABC has all the right in the world to cancel her. Now, Roseanne Barr, not the most conservative individual, but she's been a Trump supporter. And the reason she voted for or supported Trump is because she didn't want Mike Pence to be in there. Fair enough. And there were some that said, oh, yeah, Roseanne Barr is going to be the next conservative show now that Last Man Standing's gone, which, by the way, Last Man Standing coming back on Fox. That's going to be pretty awesome. Hopefully that one doesn't get canceled by them looking for some kind of tweet or some kind of comment that Tim Allen may make. And if you remember, the reason it got canceled last time was because he went on to a late-night TV show and then made the comment about, oh, this is like 1930s Germany here because, you know, you go and you say something bad about what they disagree with and they come after you and it's crazy. And he made that comment. And it's true, and it's accurate, and yet it was still funny, and they canceled Last Man Standing. So he's going to have to be very careful if we want to have conservative shows in any way, shape, or form on TV. Roseanne Barr, regardless of what she feels in her personal life, I didn't see the show. I didn't watch the show, but from what I had heard was that it was very relatable. Because she was relating as the common folk and the struggles that the common family has today, just as they tried to do back in the day. And being a Trump supporter, being a middle-income family, struggling with the day-to-day stuff. And it was just relatable, which is what people want. People want the relatability when it comes to TV shows, which is why it was so successful, which is why Last Man Standing was so successful, which is why a lot of these shows are so successful. I know like shows like The Big Bang Theory, which I think is terrible. I don't know why people like that. It's not funny to me. It's really, I just don't get it, The Big Bang Theory. I don't think it's funny, but how relatable is that by a bunch of nerdy scientist college students that are there going to school and doing, you know, physics and stuff? I guess it's kind of funny, but it's not very relatable, is it? It's kind of a big difference there. But Roseanne, first off, ABC has all the right in the world to be able to cancel her. It's not a First Amendment right issue. It is her who is a representative of the ABC network with the show that she hosts. So therefore, remember, whenever you're in the public light, anything you say and anything you do goes back to the public and that you get repercussions because of that. And the company that you work for has every right to say, yeah, you know what? You're not the best representation of what we want as a network, as a company. Therefore, sorry, we're not going to let you be here, which is what the NFL should have done, 3 years ago. When we started seeing this kneeling issue, and the NFL should have been like, yeah, you know what? You represent the team. You're wearing a jersey. What you do on your own time is your own time, but when you're wearing your jersey, then it's time that you actually represent and not actually disrespect the American flag, because the majority of NFL viewership are a bunch of good-hearted, red-blooded Americans that like to see the national anthem and like to see the military tributes and like to see the patriotism, because football is kind of an American sport. They didn't handle it appropriately. ABC nipped this one in the butt, really dramatically, by the way, too, within 30 minutes. Now, if you missed it, here's what the tweet actually was. Roseanne Barr went after Valerie Jarrett, one of the senior advisors for former President Barack Obama. Not sure why, don't know how this even came up or where she got the idea to do this, but went after this lady by the name of Valerie Jarrett and said, Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes had a baby equals VJ, Valerie Jarrett. Now, looking a little bit into Valerie Jarrett, first off, she is not black, so we cannot, the African-American community cannot claim racism on this one. I'm not sure how it's relatable. I mean, there's an inside scoop or inside story here somewhere of why she made the comment, because Valerie Jarrett is not black. She is Iranian. She is from Iran. She is Middle Eastern. So if you want to claim racism, I guess it would be racist against Middle Eastern people, but it's not a black issue. So we need to first nip that one in the butt, because we've already heard some of the African-American community come out and be the first ones to call racism on this. She is not black. She is Iranian. Now, after the tweet, she deleted it and came out and said she apologized. And then she came out with a secondary apology and said, I apologize to Valerie Jarrett and to all Americans. I am truly sorry for making a bad joke about her politics and her looks. I should have known better. Forgive me. My joke was in bad taste. Now, Muslim Brotherhood and the Planet of the Apes had a baby equals Valerie Jarrett. I would not support a tweet like that in any way, shape, or form either. I don't know if it's necessarily racist, but it's a personal attack on somebody and kind of bad taste. And I would not support something like that. But let me ask you something. ABC Network, right off the bat, baby, bam, done. You're out. We're not going to take that. We're not going to listen to that. We're not going to have you represent us with a tweet like that. And if that's how you feel, then you're not going to be part of our network. Show of hands on how many other comedians have made jokes and bad taste against conservatives, against Donald Trump, against any other on the other side of the platform, and they still have their jobs. I'm all about consistency. I'm all about fairness. I'm all about equality. I'm all about if you're going to treat somebody one way, then you treat everybody that way. Treat each other as you'd like to be treated yourself. And if you're going to have a standard, then hold that standard for everybody equally, because that's the way that we need to operate as a society. We cannot have the double standard any longer, and that's what we're seeing in this situation. I agree, honestly, with ABC coming down on her and punishing her, whether it was a fine, whether it was a suspension, or whether it was canceling the show. Sure. Punish her for what she did. Why aren't we doing that to everybody else? ABC, by the way, runs the late shows. They used to with David Letterman, with Craig Ferguson, now whoever's in those shows with Stephen Colbert, and so many other late night talk shows. Whoever's doing the one after Stephen Colbert, and I don't remember his name, but I watched those shows anyway. Craig Ferguson, by the way, was the only one that I actually watched. He was about the only funny one, and he was actually somewhat conservative. He was a Scotsman who came over and actually got his naturalization and understood the greatness of the nation, which is why he got his naturalization. I was a big fan of Craig Ferguson. Kind of miss him. He was about the only one that I did not like. David Letterman. I don't care necessarily for Jimmy Fallon. I really don't like Jimmy Kimmel. I don't like any of those guys. I don't watch late night TV. I just don't care for it. But how many times has Stephen Colbert ripped Donald Trump a new one on his show? Not on his personal Twitter account, but on the TV show. Representing ABC, who owns The Late Show. How many times has Stephen Colbert gone after him? What about Michelle Wolf at the dinner? Ripping Sarah Huckabee Sanders a new one. Attacking Donald Trump viciously. Going after them because it's really, really funny and she's a comedian. So when it comes back and, it's not in bad taste, it's just a comedian and just a joke and you just need to get over it and you need to lighten up a little bit. I can't believe that you are so uptight and conservatives don't know how to actually just take it because it's a joke. Just get over it, right? Remember Kathy Griffin with the picture of the beheaded Donald Trump that she took? Oh, it's just a joke. You ruined me. I'm a comedian. I'm really funny. I made this thing and you ruined me. How dare you? I am now a victim because you went after me when I just tried to make a joke and it was supposed to be funny. And why don't you have a sense of humor? What about the Broadway production of Julius Caesar? Remember that one in New York where they depicted Julius Caesar as President Trump and it was all modernized? And it was Donald Trump as Julius Caesar, and Congress came down and assassinated him right on the floor. Remember that production? Did that get canceled? What about Madonna going to the #MeToo movement where they're all wearing the pink hats, and she goes out there and advocates that we blow up the White House? Remember that one? Why is she still touring? Why isn't she in jail? What about Stephen Colbert, where he rips Donald Trump on a nightly basis? What about Jimmy Kimmel? Not necessarily Jimmy Fallon. He's tried to stay out of it for the most part, but Jimmy Kimmel, who's gone after him for health care and gone after him for being a horrible individual. How about all of the names that they have called Donald Trump? Do you remember all of them? Do you have an idea how many there actually are? Do you realize how many of them that we've actually heard?
It's your Pinko Flaming Commie Corner.
Woohoo!
Let's see for a second, shall we? There is a list of the top 15, 16 names that have been called by to Donald Trump by celebrities, either personally when it comes to their own personal social media accounts or when it comes to them actually on TV shows. How about the Cheeto Jesus? How about the Angry Creamsicle? I've never even heard that one. How about the Captain Chaos? How about Cadet Bone Spurs? Don't even know what that means. How about Orange Julius, the Screaming Carrot Demon, World's Greatest Troll, the Tangerine Tornado? How about Trumple Thinskin? Very unique, very out of the ordinary. How about Hitler, or Drumpf, or and I can't even say this one on the show, so we'll see if we can bleep this one out, but this one by Jon Stewart. How about off Von Clownstick? These are the names that have been called by Donald Trump. It's been called by people to Donald Trump, name-calling Donald Trump, and yet they still have jobs. They still have jobs. Now, again, I'm not trying to defend Roseanne Barr and her tweet in any way, shape, or form. She needs to be punished for it because it is in bad taste. She was trying to be the comedian and trying to do something funny, and it didn't work out, and she went a little far, and she needs to be punished for that. But it's not a violation of the First Amendment for the ABC network to cancel her. But if we are going to cancel her, let's remember a little bit of fairness when it comes to some of these comments. Let's come into some of the consistency. If we're going to punish one person for comments like that, then we need to punish everybody for these kind of comments. Because if we are trying to actually make society, happy again, or somewhat at least coexist again a little bit when it comes to the two sides of the aisle, then we need to be able to handle this equally, fairly on both sides. And all these other comedians who think they're really, really, really funny with coming up with all these names and name calling and threatening to blow up the White House and cutting off Donald Trump's head and assassinating him on a Broadway stage in New York City with all of these different things going on. Oh, it's just comedy. Just get over yourselves. And Roseanne Barr sends out one tweet, and within 30 minutes, the network cancels her show. Kind of shows the inconsistency and the double standard, doesn't it? Your thoughts on this? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We got a lot to get to today. I do want to talk more than just the tweets, but it's just mind-boggling and fascinating how Twitter, how one single social media platform can cause so much shenanigans and so much chaos when it comes to current events, when it comes to political issues, when it comes to policy making, even when Donald Trump tweets, and when it comes to violations of rights and freedoms, supposedly within society today. 23 minutes past the hour. It is a Wednesday with the Voice of Reason. Stay right here.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
The headline on Drudge Report, by the way, right now says divided states of America, liberals killed Roseanne, conservatives crushed NFL protests. Everybody happy now? Well, that's the question. Are we happy? Or is this going to continue to divide? Yes, we crushed, hopefully, the NFL protests. We got a ways to go. Yeah, we still got some work to do on that one. They killed Roseanne. Okay, fine. You know what? They killed Roseanne. Roseanne, by the way, again, not the most conservative. Not the most conservative, a quote-unquote Trump supporter, but did not care for Mike Pence, was not necessarily on the conservative side. Tried to make a joke in bad taste. Got punished for it. You know what? That's the repercussions, taking responsibility of the actions. NFL players, when are you taking responsibility of your actions? You're still being protected, by the way. Many of the teams actually saying that they'd pay the fines if you kneel, protecting you. Oh, you're not the victim then having to pay the fine, right? The team's still taking care of it for you, defending your First Amendment right that, by the way, doesn't apply this in this situation in any way, shape, or form. But yet, everybody likes to throw that term around there because we are the 130-character tweet society, to where now we can tweet it and we have our opinion, so therefore we are an expert on the actual situation. Lots more coming up. More Twitter issues when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Giving the libs one dose of sanity at a time.
I'm not being aggressive, I'm being dominant.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome back into a good Wednesday morning to you. We're halfway through the week already. It's kind of nice, isn't it? After a holiday weekend on Monday, get to enjoy a little bit shorter week. You see the light at the end of the tunnel right around the corner, baby. We see the weekend. Let's enjoy it. Let's have some fun. 100 degrees, I heard, this weekend. It's going to be nuts. Waking you up the best way that we know how to do so. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink right here on The Voice of Reason. And it's open lines to you today. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK if you want to join in. By the way, according to the same again, going back to Twitter, not necessarily Roseanne Barr, but as you know, yesterday I talked about, which led into a very interesting discussion when it came to immigration and illegal immigration and how to enforce immigration law and building the wall and all the debates that I've been having on social media and on Twitter, by the way, with some of the progressives who just don't know how to actually have substance to their arguments because they have Twitter. And they get their 160 characters and they feel really empowered because, I was able to fill it. Bam, send. And then I'm the bully online because I don't have to meet you in person, so I can talk trash all you want. Yeah, come at me, bro, as some would try to say. And there was one a couple of days ago to where she literally, by the time I got done with the conversation, I had asked her to actually provide any substance because when I tried to ask her, it was all about, well, you're terrible and conservatives are anti-immigrant and Donald Trump is like Nazis and Hitler and even people were duped by Hitler in Germany. So therefore, it's kind of the same thing because you believe in laws like the rule of law. So therefore, you must be part of a Nazi Hitler kind of propaganda mentality. So that was one. Then we got into another discussion. And by the way, all this came about by a tweet from Secretary of State Chris Kobach and a comment that he had made that started all of this discussion. And that tweet actually made the news because the progressives are in pandemonium. They're in panic every time they hear something about illegal immigration. Here's according to Kansas.com. Kansas Secretary of State has said ending a law that gives undocumented immigrants in-state tuition at state colleges and universities could stem the rising tide of tuition hikes. Tuition costs are rising for this fall for Kansas State University, the University of Kansas, Wichita State University, and other institutions. Quote, we could stem the rising tide of tuition hikes if Kansas stopped granting in-state tuition to illegal immigrants or to illegal aliens. Then, when being questioned on that later on to elaborate a little bit, he did say, quote, you can't solve the problem of tuition hikes across the board in Kansas higher education just by stopping in-state tuition for illegal aliens. It is a much bigger problem than that. So he did elaborate on that later on. But the pandemonium that this created by the media and by the progressives is quite comical because they look at a tweet and they say, we need to stop in-state tuition for illegal aliens. First off, if we know they're illegal, they are undocumented, they don't have a whole lot of identification, they don't have the verification of actually being in the country, they don't have the green card or the student visa or the work visa, they don't have any type of driver's license, they don't have any type of ID. If they don't have these things, then how in the world are we able to say, you're an illegal alien, you're able to get in-state tuition, instead of saying, you're illegal. You broke the damn law. Let's start putting you in jail and sending you back to wherever you came from. Like, do we just look at the law? And first of all, this is the most common question that I have before we even get into the details of actually in-state tuition. But this is the most blatant common sense law here of, they broke the law. They're an undocumented alien. Let's go ahead and just keep you here. And by the way, we'll give you in-state tuition. We know who they are. We know where they are. To me, this really says, here's the rule of law, crumple it up and throw it out, baby, because we don't need it, we don't want it. That's really what that's saying, is that we don't really care that there's laws in the books. We're going to openly ignore them because, you're an innocent child and you're a victim because you're in college. Now, about the actual in-state tuition part. Is that going to curb the tuition hikes at the universities? No. It's going to help, maybe. It's going to cut a little bit of the cost, but it's not going to solve it, obviously. But we have to fix that for numerous different issues, not just for the tuition hikes. Why we're getting tuition hikes at state universities, I don't know. Go ask government-subsidized programs and go ask the state universities. Go ask them why the costs continue to rise and rise and rise and rise and rise, why we're actually beginning to see a decrease in enrollment from students because it's too damn expensive, and why they're getting tuition hikes when they get subsidized by student loans that are subsidized by the government and guaranteed by the government, and then they turn around and get grants from the government as well for actual spending at the university level. It's all controlled by government in the public sector. It's not a private college. It's a public college, a state university run by the government, and tuition continues to rise. Does that make any sense to you? I thought it was supposed to be easy to be able to get into a state university. I thought it was supposed to be cheaper to get into a state university as opposed to a private university. but yet tuition hikes continue to rise. And they put it onto the tuition. They put it onto the enrollment fees. They put it onto this. They try and tag it on however they want to, and then turn around and ask the government for more money. It's kind of like the K through 12 educational system, isn't it? So we have a lot of work to do here. Is that going to solve it? No. But it is going to, I guess, help, and it's going to be a message sent saying, wait a second, if we know you're illegal, which, by the way, in 2004, under a 2004 policy that allows them to pay in-state tuition, the latest study shows about 670 undocumented aliens are enrolled in state universities and community colleges throughout the state of Kansas. 670. We know exactly how many there are, and yet we do nothing about it. To me, I just don't understand this concept. To me, I just don't understand how we know someone's breaking the law because they're undocumented, they're not supposed to be here, and yet not only do we just look the other way, but we give them in-state tuition. It blows my mind. But that's the circumstance we're under. That's the condition that we're living under as of right now. So, is it the whole problem? No. But this is going to help. It's going to help a little. I mean, it's kind of like you starting your savings account, not knowing how to start your savings account because you have very little cash and you're strapped each and every month. But, you know, it starts off with just getting the piggy bank and putting your couple pennies and spare change into the piggy bank. That's how you start a savings account, and then you build it from there. It's the savings that Donald Trump seems to be trying to do at the federal level when he's talking about, oh, we need to build a new missile. Well, you know what? I really don't want to pay that kind of amount of money for the missile. Is it 0.0001% of the federal budget? Yeah. Is it going to help? Not necessarily, but is it good to start looking at? Yeah, because as you know, anybody that's wealthy or successful, they pinch pennies, and they're the ones that are very, very tight when it comes to their budget. And they don't like to spend money on anything. And if they do, then it's going to be a bargain in order for them to actually, walk away from some of their cash. That's the way we have to look at it. And if this is going to save anything, then yeah, you know what? If it saves 0.5% of the budget when it comes to the expenditures of state universities, then yeah, is it worth doing? Yeah, not only for the budgetary side of it, but actually for the immigration part of it. It's kind of important. But we don't want to look at it. Because now the media's coming, this is a new, statistically, this actually isn't going to solve anything when it comes to the tuition hikes, when it comes to state universities. And he's just talking out of his two sides of his mouth and yada, yada. I mean, he already admitted. They go after him for trying to say, yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing. That's actually not going to solve the problem. No, it's not going to solve the problem. He even said it. You can't solve the problem of tuition hikes across the board in Kansas higher education just by stopping in-state tuition for illegal aliens. It is a much bigger issue than that. But why not do that? Not only for the principle of it, or the fact that we recognize there are laws in the books called the rule of law and immigration policy, and we're not going to give someone in-state tuition when they're not supposed to be here in the first place. But aside from that, yeah, let's save some cash. You're going to pay out-of-state tuition. If you're even going to be there in the first place. Why you're there in the first place, I don't know. And if you try to register, that should be the red flag of, oh, hey, this person's illegal. Hey, ICE, come and check them out. To me, that would be my policy. If I ever tried to run for that, would probably be one of the policies that I would say, yeah, not only are we going to make them pay out-of-state tuition, but if you do try and register for college and you are an undocumented alien, there's going to be that big red flag that automatically sends a message to law enforcement that says, hey, there's a person here that doesn't have any form of identification, doesn't have a social security number, doesn't have any type of TIN number, doesn't have any type of residential status here. They're here illegally. Okay. But yet we don't do that. I just don't get it. So that was the tweet that came out that of course caused the progressives to freak out. Then that was the one that actually I began to converse with certain individuals on Twitter because of that tweet. And they, of course, the progressives went after him and they tried to attack me and yada, yada, yada. And it was a lot of fun. So then somebody else tried to comment against me yesterday on Twitter about substance. And they said, Andy, I agree. How about this fact as substance for the argument? The poorest population of minorities are the people who don't have IDs or access to getting an ID. It's discriminatory and unfair to set up a pay-to-play access for democracy, meaning they can't afford to be able to get your ID to register to vote. Which, first off, shows the complete ignorance again because we don't live in a democracy. We're going to continue to remind everybody that we live in a constitutional republic, not a democracy. Second off, I still think, isn't it racist? And maybe minorities, you can help me out with this. Maybe somebody of I don't know, somewhere you can help me out with this. Can you tell me how many people you know that actually don't have a form of identification? Some form of identification, whether it's a driver's license, whether it's a state ID, whether it's a passport, whether it's something. You know somebody that does not have any form of identification? Give me a break. You don't have to just use your driver's license to get registered to vote. All you need is a form of ID that the government has issued you. And I'm pretty sure that everybody in some way, shape, or form has a form of ID, even if you're poor. First off, poor is a very vague term. But what is it? I don't know what it means to actually be poor. But it is. We are not setting up some kind of racist system to stop the poor people from actually being able to vote because of a pay-to-play system in our democracy, or because that we actually want people to verify who they are when they register to vote. How terrible is it to actually want people to verify who they are as an individual to be able to register to vote? What a terrible system that must be, right? It's a racist, bigoted, discriminatory, unfair system because poor people can't afford an ID. That is the dumbest argument I've ever heard. I'm sorry. Because I don't know a single person that does not have some form of ID. If you have a cell phone, you have a contract, which means you had some form of ID to get that cell phone. If you have a home or an electric bill at an apartment, you have some form of ID to be able to get you signed up for that. If you have a car, then you obviously have a driver's license, hopefully, or some form of ID in order to get you registered to have that car. If you have anything that you've signed up for, a credit card, a store card, anything, you had some form of ID in order to get signed up for that. And you're telling me that there's a mass amount of the population that doesn't have any of that stuff, that's never been able to register to vote or have any form of ID in any way, shape, or form, and therefore we're discriminatory against poor people and minorities, which, by the way, again, a racist comment thinking that minorities are too poor to actually afford some form of ID, but I digress, is the dumbest argument I've ever heard my entire life. Your thoughts on this? 316-721-8255. It's really caused some interesting conversation, not only by the media panicky about what Chris Kobach says, the Secretary of State, when it comes to his voter ID laws, but also some of the comments of, the trolls that try to attack him, and then some of the fun banter that I've got to have with some of them on social media. Again, Twitter changing the world. I don't know for the better, but it's definitely changing the world. Your thoughts on this? Let's go to the phones. 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Hey, good morning, Scott. What's happening?
Well, as far as I know, you can get a free ID and you're trying to vote. You just got to show that you're
you just got to verify yourself.
I think you can get a Social Security card. If you have Social Security number and stuff, you can get a free ID.
Sure. As far as I'm aware, and you do that just by, you can go and you can verify by, your name and address on an electric bill, on a cell phone bill. If you sign up for any of these things, then you obviously have a Social Security number and some form of ID to be able to prove that. So, am I right here? Isn't it racist to assume that minorities are too poor to be able to get a form of ID?
Well, see, the other thing, too, is you have to be prepared for the answer the question that you ask, you have to be prepared for the answer.
Sure.
Now, a lot of people don't want to accept that the police state and the New World Order play a part of this, because Kathleen Sebelius was the one that passed that law about allowing illegals to have in-state tuition. Now, the only reason she would pass something like that is because she's one of these globalist type people.
Well, sure, she's a very far-fetched progressive, absolutely.
The fact that these people exist, then you're not going to ever find an answer to any of this stuff. These people actually exist. These globalist types are here in Kansas, as well as other parts of the country.
Sure.
And their goal is to overturn the democratic process and the constitutional republic of this country,
sure,
and change it to a more socialist movement.
Sure.
Because right now, I'm seeing even in Sedgwick County, like I say, they're running this place, like a boss hog type of situation there, where they have this elitist or socialist type party, and they're running everything and moving everything. Even they're talking about shooting fireworks, and they don't want to let people of Wichita shoot fireworks, but it's okay for these guys to shoot fireworks.
Well, and I'm with you in there. I don't like the fact that we don't.
North Korean president does that.
Well, I mean, I'm with you there. I mean, I think that we should be able to fire off the fireworks, and you know, I don't know why the big hubbub is about it, and you know, all the poor animals and that sort of thing. But come on, give me a break. It's 1 or 2 nights a year. I think we can survive with being able to shoot off fireworks. So I appreciate the call, Scott. But I mean, you're right. I mean, there are very many, as you call them, the globalists. You're absolutely right when it comes to they don't care for individual sovereignty. They don't care for limited government. The government should be the one controlling everybody, and that's their agenda. And as long as they get individuals who are not supposed to be here, as long as I get individuals who have wanted to cause harm, wanted to do bad things, or even just with maybe good intentions but have broken the law, they want to look the other way. They want to outnumber conservatives any way they can in order for them to remain in power, so that way they can continue to dictate laws and do whatever they want to. So you're right in that sense. And that is a huge agenda when it comes to the in-state tuition. But again, how do you get in-state tuition if you're not supposed to be here in the first place? Is it going to curb the budgetary issues? No, we're still going to have tuition hikes at the state universities. Why? Because it's run by the government, and they don't give a rat's you-know-what about how much you actually have to pay or get into debt in order to go to college and get a quote-unquote education. And that's probably even part of their agenda, is to try and get you in so much debt that you're paying for it for the rest of your life, because they like to subsidize you as the government. But is it racist to assume that minorities are the people that are too poor to actually get an ID in order to vote? To me, that's a racist comment by the progressives, who are racist because they always see skin color and they always look at the race of everybody before they actually make their decisions and actually do anything. So they are already racist. But to me, that is the racist comment, by saying poor people and minorities cannot get their ID to vote, which I've never heard of a single person, of all the people I've run across in my life, never heard a single person say that they were too poor to actually get an identification of some sort when they had a cell phone, they had utility bills, they had a car, they had all these other things that you need some form of ID to in order to actually get signed up for. So if you know anybody that doesn't have some form of ID because they're too poor, then please let me know. 316-721-8255. We've got some more callers on the line. Stay here. Got to take a break. Wrapping up hour number 1. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
You got to remember, according to the progressive, conservatives are the racist ones because we want to actually keep people from getting voter ID cards because they're too poor to be able to get them. But we assume, as a progressive, that they're too poor as a minority to be able to get a voter ID. And oh, by the way, all the illegal immigrants coming in, they don't have any other qualities other than being able to work the fields and work poor jobs that we don't want to do. So that all those comments, by the way, are not racist. Conservatives are the racist ones, right? Welcome to Lunacy 101, ladies and gentlemen. Hour number 2 coming up in just a second. Got some calls on the line. Don't go anywhere. We're going to kick off hour number 2 with open lines to you. It's whatever you want to talk about, these comments and more. We got a lot to get to today. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason coming up in just a second. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
If you have a $200, $300, $400 cell phone bill every month for you and the family, then you have a problem, because we're paying you what the market actually sets for you and for your job skills. We're paying market value for you, and you're not going to manipulate the market on what the value of your job is just because you can't figure out your own personal budget. That's on you. That's not on me. We need to remember that we need to take on personal responsibility.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting, KGPT TV, channel 2610. What up? Welcome in. It is a Wednesday, halfway through the... we just lost them. We they hang. We had a couple calls actually that were hanging on throughout the entire top of the hour break, and then just hung up right as we came back in. Call back. We want to hear from you. It is open line to you, 316-721-8255, 888-721-TALK if you want to join into the program. Coming up in about 20 minutes from now, we're going to have Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner, on, as we usually do, for the Wednesday, getting on our Sedgwick County Commission and talking about some of the county issues happening here. But until then, it is open lines too. We have a lot to get to, a lot of fun discussion. No other guests today, by the way, just Jim Howell at 7:30, but the rest of the lines are open to you for the rest of the show today. We are on Facebook Live today as well. A lot of people commenting on there, and we really appreciate that. Facebook.com/1480 KQAM. If you want to comment, that I'm still open to hear, as some of the comments have been, if you missed the last hour, progressives and the Twitter accounts, of course, the tweet that causes a hubbub with a lot of individuals and comments that are made. One of the debates that I got into over the weekend in the last couple of days has been an individual that claims that voter ID laws are racist and bigoted because poor people and minorities, meaning the minorities being too poor, cannot afford IDs in order to get registered to vote. So therefore, it is unfair for them and detrimental to our democracy. Which, of course, as you know, there's no such thing as a democracy in the United States because we do not have a democracy. We have a constitutional republic. We have never had a democracy. So that's one chalk up of being completely unaware of what our governmental system actually is, or what it should be, at least. We're not necessarily in a constitutional republic even anymore compared to ways that we're actually moving in the country, but we at least try to maintain our constitutional republicanism. Not republicanism as in the party, but the republican, the form of government. And we need to remember and know the difference between those two. 316-721-8255. So the question I have for you, and it's still open, is do you know anybody? Look, I've met tons of people as a child. I met people in college, in high school, in different organizations, being in radio, going out into doing, different events. I've never in my life ever met someone who has been too poor to actually get some form of ID. If you have a cell phone, if you're signed up for utilities for your apartment or your home, if you have a car, if you have a Sears credit card, if you have a whatever, it doesn't matter. If you have any type of card or bank account or home or anything, cell phone, you have some form of ID, which you got signed up to get those things. Something. If you don't have, the only way that you would not have an ID is if you have nothing. You're literally a homeless person on the side of the street that actually has nothing to your name. And even then, you probably have some form of ID, or you at least had some form of ID in order to get through. So the question I have, do you know anybody that's never had some form of ID? Because apparently, the latest argument by progressives is the fact that voter ID discrimination, voter ID laws are discriminatory against minorities because apparently poor people are only minorities, and it's discriminatory and unfair in that sense because they cannot afford the IDs in order to get registered to vote. I've never met anybody that does not have some form of ID. Never did. But apparently that's the new argument. So that to me is a racist comment because, well, of course, if you're poor, then you must be a minority, right? You must be poor in that sense. There is another story, by the way, a protest by this, according to the Topeka Capital Journal. Poor People's Campaign plans third week of protests. I didn't even know that they were going on. It must not be that big of a protest, but they're still going on for week number 3 as the Kansas Poor People's Campaign plans continue protests at the Kansas State House yesterday for the third consecutive week. Participants were expected to carry signs reading "Money for Veterans, Not for War," "Build Schools, Not Walls," and others, according to the new release from the campaign. The group plans to gather at the south steps of the Kansas State Capitol yesterday afternoon for the 2 p.m. rally. Quote, they'll call for reallocation of budgetary dollars to veterans, health care, schools, public housing, and other social programs in need of funding, among other demands. Let me get this straight. You are the Poor People's Campaign in the middle of a workday, not working, but protesting on the side of the Capitol. I wonder why you're poor. Does that make any sense to anybody else? We're the Poor People's Campaign. We are poor. We are poor. We are poor. We are poor. Okay, so you go to the State House during a workday instead of actually getting a job, and you campaign on getting more government stuff because you're poor. That makes total sense. Tuesday's protesters plan to call for a demilitarization of the country's borders and a shift to the immigration system that would prioritize family reunification. Participants will also call for a ban on assault rifles and access to. They're just going to do everything. We just want to protest everything that we possibly can. Hold signs for anything. It's not going to be a very specific protest. We'll just kind of broaden the spectrum here a little bit, and then whatever flavor that we feel like actually holding a sign for, we'll actually protest for, which if you're poor, then you should probably do something other than protest and go get a job. Second off, many of these issues we don't actually deal with at the state level, do we? We don't talk about the demilitarization of the nation at the state capitol in Topeka, do we? As far as I'm aware, that hasn't been one of the legislative issues that have been brought up in Topeka. Just saying. As far as I'm aware, we don't actually do a whole lot with the Department of Veteran Affairs at the federal level. We just take whatever programs they have and try and tailor it to make it a statewide program the best that we possibly can. But we can't do a whole lot there. As far as I'm aware, the state of Kansas is not funding building the wall on the southern border. We just try and enforce it the best we can with our National Guard when we get called to go down there. There's a big difference. This really shows the intelligence level, the IQ levels of some of these protesters who are too poor to do anything, so they're going to be at the Capitol steps protesting because they're the Poor People's Campaign, supporting the poor as poor people without jobs during a workday, holding signs and protesting. Your thoughts on all this? 316-721-8255. The hypocrisy, the comical environment is really entertaining to me. I love being able to find the hypocrisy, and it's very evident in today's society, especially when then you take this and you go onto Twitter and then you start doing it on the social media because you're really so poor that you can afford, probably a $300 cell phone with a big, nice little touch screen on it, and then you can get on your social media and tell people how poor you are because that makes sense as well. Let's go to the phones, get your thoughts on all this and more. 316-721-8255, line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, good morning. It's Deacon.
Deacon, what's happening, sir?
It's a beautiful day out here.
Every day. It's a little bit cooler today, ain't it?
Oh, it's fantastic. I'm loving this.
Loving this one. It's not 80 degrees at 6 a.m. Good deal.
Right? Hey, I got a couple of them for you. This first one, this is one that'll send the liberals into apoplexy. If you're on the government dole, you don't get to vote.
Ooh.
If you don't have skin in the game, you don't get to help make the rules.
That's a good point. I mean, you're not allowed to if you are not part of a company, you don't work for the company, you don't get to go to the company and say this is probably what you should do as a company. You don't get to have a say in there, which is why before, and I know that they said this was racist back in the day as well when we formed the nation, but they said that you needed to actually own property in order to be able to vote because you are paying property taxes into the government, so therefore you got to say what happens with your actual tax money.
Actually, absolutely right. They were looking at if you paid taxes on your property, then you got to help make the rules. Well, now if you have a job, you pay income tax. So, expand that not just to property owners, but to people who, actually pay the government to work.
I would say if you pay some form of tax and some shit, if you have property tax, if you work and you have income tax, if you buy a lot of goods and you have sales tax, if you contribute, then all the power to you, then you can vote. I mean, obviously, if you're here legally as well, because I know a lot of illegals try and do that as well. But if you are legal and you can verify your identification and you have skin in the game, then you can vote, and all the power to you, because then you get to have a say on what's going on with the government as you're actually contributing to the government. If you're not contributing, then you're kind of like the sideline player of the baseball game where you're sitting on the sidelines but yet trying to dictate to how the general manager's coaching the team.
Exactly, because nobody is going to vote for somebody who's going to take stuff away from them.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on the government dole, you're not going to vote for a guy who is a conservative who says, you know what, we need to scale back some of these programs.
That's true, which is what the agenda has been for the progressives for a really long time, which is why now you're even seeing them try to advocate for criminals and individuals incarcerated to be able to vote as well, because, well, heck, that's going to be a whole other voter base that the Democrats can have.
Right. And part number 2 is what is the government, the federal government in the Constitution, what is their job?
Well, other than very few specific jobs, as in protecting the nation with national security and dealing with foreign policy issues, that's really the only jobs the federal government's supposed to have. The rest of it's supposed to go back to the states.
That's it. So why is the federal government getting involved in education? Why is the federal government getting involved in food stamps? Why is the federal government telling the states what to do when it has nothing to do with the federal government?
It's been going that way for a long time, really, since the Great Deal, and you're absolutely right. They're not supposed to be involved in those. The Department of Education shouldn't be there. The Environmental Protection Agency shouldn't be there. The Department of Energy shouldn't be there. All these bureaucratic agencies, the fourth branch of the government that's appointed by the executive branch, where they come out with their nice little bills that are signed by executive order, that is all unconstitutional, but we just kind of accept it today.
Exactly. We need to just stop taking what they're handing us and go, look, that's not your job. I'm not going to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
And my last thing is all these people throwing a fit because families are getting torn apart when somebody gets deported. Oh, we can't break up the family. Okay, how about this? I'm a really good drug dealer. I make a lot of money selling dope.
You're supporting your family.
I'm taking care of my family. My family has a house. I give to the community. And when I get arrested, are they gonna let my family keep the money? Are they gonna let my family keep the house? No, they're gonna put me in jail, and my family's gonna be on the street.
Well, come on, that's a heartless way to look at it, because we're tearing people's families apart. And if you're taking away, they could have been privatizing or homeschooling their children because they could afford to do so. And that's just not right. We need to allow them to keep that money. We need to allow them to keep that drug deal going on, because that's really what's supporting their family, even if it breaks the law. And we should probably start changing that too. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. If as long as I'm using the money I make to take care of my family, I should be able to do whatever I want.
Sure. Absolutely. There it is. I love it, Deacon. I appreciate the call, my friend. No, some excellent points. It's kind of funny. They said, we're tearing apart the families. They've never talked about that or were concerned about that before, but now all of a sudden it's a really big issue. 316-721-8255. Your thoughts. The Poor People's Campaign campaigning up in Topeka for 3 weeks straight as they complained about being poor, and they've been in the Capitol with signs for 3 weeks complaining about being poor. Oh, the irony. It's so thick we could cut it with a butter knife, which is the best kind of situation for me to be in, because I find that quite comical. Let's go back to the phones, line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy.
Helen, what's going on?
Well, you guessed me again.
There you go.
My squeaky voice.
It's all right. What's on your mind?
The Lord God agrees with you 100%. He's no respecter of persons. He doesn't respect the poor over the rich or the rich over the poor. And he judges us all according to our individual works.
Sure.
Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. We shall all be judged and reap from what we sow.
Sure.
But the mistake that a lot of people make is that they think that Jesus came to bring peace to the world. St. Luke chapter 12:51. Suppose ye that I, the true Jesus Christ, am come to give peace on earth. I tell you no or nay, but rather division. So all of this stuff that's going on in the world today is helping him to separate his sheep from the goats. And St. Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 through 33, when the Son of Man, which is the true Jesus Christ, comes in his glory, and all his holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon his throne of glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, all people of the world, shall he divide them from one another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from his goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. So, this is all this stuff that's going on in the world today is helping the Lord to, it's testing his children.
Well, that's an interesting
children in the world.
Sure, that's an interesting perspective of that, Helen. I appreciate that. I want to sneak in one more phone call here, but you're right. We're really separating people from common sense, reason, and intelligence, and not so much. If look, I've always learned, and I've told this many times before, that if you want to change something in your life, change it. No one's going to do it for you. No one's going to hand it out to you. No one's going to give it to you. No one's going to hold your hand and walk you through it. They may help you And sometimes you need that leg up and you need a helping hand, but you don't get it just by having them do the work for you, or else you never learn to change your habits, right? That's really what it's all about. If you want to change something in your life, if you feel that you're poor, which again, poor is a very vague term, but if you feel that you're poor, then do something about being poor. Don't go and try and campaign for 3 weeks straight on the state capitol asking for more government goodies and free handouts when you could do something about it. It's very fascinating to me to watch people just how they like to play the victim and how they like to go and rather just complain rather about actually doing something to fix the issue itself. Let's sneak in one more phone call here before a break, shall we? 316-721-8255 at line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Scott, what's going on?
I've never been to the welfare office, but I bet money that you have to prove who you are before they start giving you welfare food stamps.
Yeah, you would think that you'd have to have some form of identification or some form of ID to prove who you are in order to actually get those benefits, don't you think?
That's it.
I like that. Scott, that's a perfect call right there. That you would think if you're, come on, if you're trying to, I can't register to vote. I'm too poor. I'm on all the social programs. How'd you get the social programs? Yeah. Some form of identification. Again, it's still open. If you know somebody that's never had any type of form of ID in any way, shape, or form that would disallow them to actually register to vote, let me know, because, again, I've never heard that before. Maybe it's out there somewhere. Maybe it's the stray rainbow-flavored unicorn. I don't know, but I've yet to see that one in some way, shape, or form. 24 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Minutes past the hour. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Bottom of the hour news coming up in just a second here. Got to take another break. When we come back, Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell will be joining us. Looking forward to chatting with him. Lots more to get to today, though, as well. Hour number 3 is going to be open lines to you. No guests, just you and I chitting the chat, advancing conservatism on a daily basis. When we do come back as well, I do want to reopen this back up to you again. It's still open. If anybody knows anybody without an ID, I'd really love to hear from you on that front, because I don't know of anybody. By the way, this Friday, not only is it the kickoff really to summertime, we talked with the Black Kettle Festival coming up in Moundridge this weekend, but it is also the kickoff to Riverfest 2018. We're going to be really involved with the station. Rick Everett going to be down broadcasting live at noon at Riverfest on Friday. Make sure to check that out. We'll have more information coming up on that one here real soon. This is The Voice of Reason. It's a Wednesday. Stay right here.
It's time for your daily dose of reason.
Are you insane?
I don't know. Just ignore him.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. 35 minutes past the hour. Great to have you along today. It is a Wednesday, halfway through the week. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's a heck of a time to be alive, heck of a time to enjoy. It is summertime now. 100 degrees, I heard, this weekend potentially could be. That's going to be nutso. Welcome in 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Lots more to get to. We have a lot to talk about today, but it is time for our county update. We do it every single week as we get County Commissioner Jim Howell on the line talking about what's happening with Sedgwick County. Jim, what's going on, my friend?
Oh, Andy, I'll tell you what, the big thing this week, of course, is the beginning of Riverfest. You just mentioned that.
Yeah.
There's a parade a parade Friday evening, and from then we've got more than a week of fun. So we'll be involved in the parade, and we'll be engaged in about 6 different things. I
tell you what, it is a really fun time to be active now that it's starting to warm up finally and actually go the other way and actually get a little too hot. But now summertime is here, and this is a fun time. Take the family out, go enjoy some goodies. And, yeah, Riverfest, as you said, kicking off this Friday, going to be going on for just over a week. And I'm really excited. Riverfest is always one of those really fun things that people just need to go out and check out.
It is a lot of fun. You know, I understand it's one of the 20 largest events in the entire nation.
Wow.
In terms of a tourist type draw. It's actually a very large event. We should be very proud of Riverfest. And so if you've never have been down there, there's plenty to see and do. And I think we ought to be very proud and not to engage our opportunity. So glad you've been plugging on that deal. But in terms of other business here at the county, probably the biggest thing, and I hope your listeners would actually engage in this discussion just a little bit. Our biggest issue really is this issue of the administration building. Just to remind everyone, we're essentially getting kicked out of this building. We office out of the county courthouse. We've done this for 50 or 60 years or so, however long this building's been here. But the problem is, basically, the Chief Justice Lawton Nuss kind of opened a can of worms and said we have to have more courtroom space. Well, then the DA said absolutely we're out of space as well, and the sheriff also chimed in. So between the three of those offices, we need to clear out about 3 floors of this building, which, by the way, has always been the plan. But there's about 45,000 square feet of offices that need to move out of this building, and so we need to find a new building. And that's been a major discussion. I think we mentioned this last week on this segment last week, but we ended up having a 3.5-hour meeting. We actually did not make a decision other than just to eliminate a couple of options. We still have another decision to make, and that's which direction are we headed. And right now, it seems like there's 3 options ahead of us, and that's where I want your listeners to weigh in. I can briefly describe them. We have this building. I think it's at 150 North Main. It's a dilapidated, old, blighted building that's had a fire in it. It's fairly tall. It's like 9 floors tall. I may be wrong on some of the facts here, but it's about 9 floors tall. It's a very large building, like 150,000 square feet. And we could purchase that building, essentially gut everything in it, replace the windows, replace the HVAC, the electrical, every wall, every ceiling, every floor. It'd be a brand new building, and that's about a $17 to $19 million option.
Okay.
We also have the building just outside this courthouse. It's called the DA Annex. It's 24,000 square feet plus. I think that includes a basement. We're considering potentially raising that building. That means demolish that, replace it with a new building, probably a 4-story building, possibly a 5th floor. Which might just be a shell for future growth. That, by the way, that bothers me a little bit because I don't like the idea of growth of government. But it also would have a basement, so that would be about a 75,000 square foot facility. When you add in the total cost of that over 20 years or so, it's going to be obviously a little bit smaller. It would be better on utility bills, but it's also more expensive price per square foot because it's new construction, and it's only about a 55,000 square foot net gain because, again, I mentioned we raised a 24,000 square foot building to make room for that. So it's a tighter fit, but it's really not less money. It's around it's about a $20 to $21 million option over 20 years. Now it would be a nice building, but it would be slightly smaller, but it would be a little bit more money. And we also have this building called the Riverview Building. It's over by the river where Central connects over to the Riverview. I'm not sure exactly how the streets fork over there, but just to the southwest of here a little bit, there's a beautiful 6-story mirrored glass building. And that building, we were able to negotiate the price down to about $5.8 million. It's 91,000 square feet, and it's move-in ready. The only problem with that is we have some leaseholders there. Leaseholders probably will be staggering out over a number of years, and so we won't get full occupancy of the building for a number of years potentially. So it's a longer process to use that building, but obviously some absolute savings. I hate to tell you, but I'm personally biased, but I think every commissioner is biased on this.
Sure.
I think there's two commissioners would probably prefer the new courthouse annex or addition. I think we have a couple of commissioners that would say first or second choice would be the 150 North Main. And I think there's two commissioners who would rather see us select the Riverview building, the mirrored building. The problem is, how do we get to 3? And so there's the challenge. And I don't know, from my perspective, I don't think the public ought to be impressed with new buildings or large buildings. And the one building that seems to meet our needs the most, the best, and has a nice fit that doesn't actually remove anything, It's less cost, but it does require more patience, and that would be the Riverview building. That's kind of where I'm leading myself right now.
Okay.
But I'm certainly open to other people's ideas, and I would love to have them weigh in on this. And so we need to hear from them. Please email Sedgwick County Commissioners. I'll probably post some of this on my Facebook page, my Sedgwick County my Sedgwick County Facebook page. I think some of the other commissioners have done the same. So I hope the listeners will find our information online about that. Please email us or call us and tell us how what we should do in this case. It's a very large decision that's going to last literally another 50 or 60 years in the future. So this decision is very important, and I don't want to rush it. One of my problems is I feel like even a week or two of delay, a lot of people are getting upset.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're stalling too long. But in my opinion, is a couple of weeks to do things more analytical and make a more careful decision is worth the time.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. I mean, I'm with you. I don't see the need to rush this. If we're going to make a decision, it's going to cost the county some money in order to do this transition. Let's make sure it's done right. And the really good news about all this is that we have options. It's not like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place between, there's not any options out there. We're going to have to spend a buttload of money in order to build something brand new, or we get a really junky place and just have to scrap it and just pretty much do a whole new thing over and gut it and do everything else. I mean, we're not stuck in that position. We have some decent options here, so let's discuss them. Let's think about them. Let's look at the cost effectiveness of each and one of them, and then begin to narrow down the options and figure out which one's going to be best.
Absolutely. And by the way, in fairness, I presented that a little bit more biased than I should have. In fairness, the Riverview building, the mirrored building, does require some repair work and some remodeling, not a whole lot of remodeling, but it requires much less remodeling. One of the problems, of course, is it's not a building that's the right size and shape for what we want. So we've got to fit the building. Again, I'm okay with that. I think that's what we should do. The new building, of course, we would build exactly what we need. My opinion is it's a little on the small side. It doesn't really meet all of our objectives. We identified our objectives to begin with. It actually falls a little bit short of that. And there's some challenges at 150 North Main that it's a tough location, and the parking down there may be more of a challenge for that. So there's some other issues about this, but it's a very complicated problem statement. Let me just say it that way.
Sure.
And I know it's boring to watch meetings. I get so boring. I tell you, no, I can't imagine anybody sitting there watching a meeting. But as I said before, Andy, we record our meetings on YouTube. And so they're available. Somebody can go out there and they can, click through that and kind of see some of the details. That's probably the best way to learn, because I know out of the 3.5 hours, probably 2.5 hours was related to this building. That's a long time to sit there and watch this. But if you really want to get up to speed on what's going on here and really engage the discussion, that might be the way to do that. So we'll be talking about it again next week. I know I've got time with you next Wednesday right before the meeting. But between now and then, I hope I hear from some people. But next week, June the 6th, we are going to take this issue back up again. I anticipate we're going to make a decision. So this is now down to the last week of really just hemming and hawing and thinking about it. We've got to make a decision probably next week.
Good.
Other things, I don't know if you've heard about this or not, but Rick Everett and I have talked for years about he used to be an addicted smoker.
Sure.
And I've learned through because I was a state legislator, I learned about something called tobacco harm reduction. It's a theory that says if, basically cigarette smoking in terms of bad habits for your health is probably the worst habit. It's very dangerous. A lot of people suffer all kinds of issues because of smoking, and some people actually contact cancer and actually die. And so just look at those numbers. It's incredible how many people are harmed by cigarette smoke. We might even argue secondhand cigarette smoke, which is a whole other issue. But then you compare that to other forms of tobacco use or nicotine delivery, things like the patch. People would say, well, the patch doesn't hurt anybody. It's just nicotine. Well, if nicotine is the problem, then that might be an interesting discussion about that. But I think people inherently understand that nicotine is not a carcinogen. Mm-hmm. And nicotine itself is not the problem. It's everything else that goes with smoking that's the problem.
Sure.
Well, anyway, even chewing tobacco, please understand, I'm not advocating for anybody to do any of these things, but I am recognizing the fact that some things are less harmful and can have less risk than other things. That's really the point I'm trying to make. This is a conservative, scientific viewpoint But the issue of vaping has revolutionized the issue that a lot of people are moving away from smoking tobacco, like Rick Everett, and he's now vaping. And he tells me he can sleep better. He has more endurance. He doesn't get winded. He's lost weight. He says he just feels better than he's ever felt. And he's just one guy. But you start multiplying that out, the risks of vaping compared to the risks of smoking cigarettes is not even comparable. I might just throw out there, I don't really know what the numbers would be, but let's just say it's 1 billion to 1. It's an enormous difference. Because cigarette smoking, we know, kills millions of people, and I'm still looking for that first person who's died from vaping. Now, there has been some people who have had batteries explode and things like that. It's an electromechanical device.
Well, I've heard
iPhones explode.
Yeah, I've heard the odd stuff with either a battery exploding, or if they do it, I guess people that have done it too much as well. Sometimes what they said they found some mold in some people's lungs or something. But I mean, again, that's a very rare issue compared to the number of people that actually get sick and cancer or the clogged lungs or whatever from when it comes to smoking tobacco.
So again, I want to clarify. I'm not advocating for anybody to do any of these things, including vaping. I'm not an advocate. I don't think it's a good thing.
Sure.
But I'm just saying, if you're going to do something that looks like cigarette smoking, vaping is, in my opinion, carries very little, if not zero, harms and risk. And it's not something that bothers me. As a conservative, if somebody else is making a choice to do something that doesn't bother me, there's no skin off my teeth. I don't care. But you know what? I'm happy for them that they're choosing something that's not going to probably kill them.
Sure.
And so I think it's a better choice for them. Well, anyway, we've got our smoking policy coming up, and I'll just tell you that, in my opinion, this is a politically charged discussion. I understand some people look at vaping and say, I don't like it because it looks like smoking, or I don't like the smell. Somebody has candy flavor in there, and I don't like that smell. I understand all that. Sometimes I don't like people's cologne. I don't like people's perfume. I don't like, sometimes people make other smells. I'll just say it that way. So things we don't like, I get that. But I have to tell you, compared to cigarette smoking, it is not to be compared. There is almost no comparison between cigarette smoking and any other form of tobacco use. But I would tell you that people who are advocates for this will tell you that people who want to quit smoking, it's probably the most successful cessation tool ever been invented. When I was in the State House, I learned that patches, gum, and prescription medicines, some of them, by the way, cause suicidal thoughts and potential suicide. But altogether, we're 93% failure rate, even including hypnosis and everything else. The gum, the patches, 93% failure rate for people who want to quit smoking. But this new product has actually revolutionized that. Now more people are successful getting off of smoking. So now by vaping.
So when it comes to and we got a few minutes here, so I want to make sure. So when we come to the tobacco policy, or when we come to the smoking policy in the county, there's a new movement now that's wanting to begin banning the vaping just as much as the cigarettes.
Yeah, they want to equalize it and say because it looks like smoking, that vaping has got the same prohibitions and same rules related to vaping as you would have on smoking. Now I understand. Someone smoking in their office would be a bad thing. That smoke wafts over the wall and it hurts somebody else. Okay, I get that, and that's why we have a smoking policy. But vaping, if you vape in a way that's not, again, I would never advocate for the tag office clerk to vape in front of the customers. I mean, that's unprofessional. I would never advocate for that. But if someone's vaping in their office and they're doing billing paperwork or things like that, I'd much rather see them do that than leave their office and go outside and smoke for 10 minutes, 5 or 6 times a day. So to me, this is a policy that it impacts the efficiency and effectiveness, and it also impacts our ability to be productive. And frankly, at the end of the day, if I'm interested in the health of my employees and health of the public, I don't want to equalize vaping and cigarette smoking. They're not the same things.
Sure.
That's my concern. So anyway, I would tell you this is a politically correct issue. I, as a conservative Republican, understand that this is a thing sweeping the nation right now, and we as conservatives need to stand up and say this is ridiculous.
I would agree. I mean, I think that, we need to, first off, I think smoking laws itself, just in tobacco, are a little too harsh. If we're going to start going down that road for vaping, if people want to start making those healthier-ish decisions, then, I think we should be treating them a little bit differently. So that's interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up because that's going to be a debate, hopefully, that we can actually chime in on and have our say because, It seems like anybody that wants to smoke really anything, they get demonized in that sense. And whether it's cigarettes, whether it's cigars, pipe tobacco, or whether it's even the vaping now we need to come after everybody because smoke, just seeing the smoke apparently is a really scary thing for some people.
I understand. You know, it's interesting also that a lot of the same people that are so militant on this issue and they see something that looks like cigarettes, therefore it's bad, they also want to legalize marijuana. And I just think that's hilarious.
I'm right there with you on that one. Yeah, that's comical.
By the way, you know, Sweden and Europe, frankly, is way ahead of America on this issue. They've actually seen the reduction in lung cancer and heart disease and all those other terrible diseases. They've seen reductions in some of that because of the transition to vaping. In fact, other governments are actually promoting vaping as a way to get people off of cigarettes. So I would think if the American Cancer Society or the American Lung Association really wants to reduce human suffering and death, they would at least factually recognize there's a difference.
Sure.
But they refuse. They call it tobacco use. They actually call vaping a tobacco product. Again, I'm not advocating for something, but I think it's just ignorant. It's not scientific. And frankly, it assumes that everything has got the exact same risk. And in fact, there's no way.
Exactly.
And you know, they also advocate for nicotine use as a cessation tool, but this is just another nicotine delivery system. And the other ingredients in vaping are actually FDA approved for human consumption. So this whole thing doesn't make sense. And it's just it's a politically charged, politically correct discussion. And we ought to be smarter than that.
Sure. Well, it's going to be a fun discussion. I'm glad you brought that up because hopefully we can learn about it and kind of chime in on that one. No commission meeting today. It is the last Wednesday of the month, but we'll be back at it tomorrow or next Wednesday when a lot of the stuff is going to come up, not for just for the smoking, but also for the administration building. Everybody needs to be involved in that one. Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell, we're out of time, my friend. It's always a pleasure. By the way, did you have a great Memorial Day?
Oh my goodness, it was wonderful, and I was able to attend a couple of Memorial Day services at cemeteries. It was very moving. It was heartbreaking to hear some of the stories, but to see the people turn out, it was just wonderful. I was honored to speak at one of them on Monday. I really appreciated taking time to remember our military servants that have given their lives for our country. It's just an overwhelming experience. I actually took time out this weekend to watch Saving Private Ryan again.
Good.
I just tell you, it just really moves me to realize our freedom is a very costly thing.
Amen to that one. Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner. Always a pleasure, my friend. Good luck. Have fun this week. We'll chat with you again next Wednesday.
All right. We'll see you then.
Hey, always a good time. Always a good time. Got to take a break. Wrapping up hour number 2. Lots more to get to. It's hour number 3. Open lines to you on a Wednesday. Stay right here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the show. Wrapping up hour number 2. Hour number 3 right around the corner. This show, I tell you, every single day, but it goes by way too fast. We have way too much fun on here, and I want to hear from you. It's open lines to you. No guest in hour number 3. Just you and I chitting the chat, having some fun, advancing conservatism on a normal, regular, and somewhat decent base. At least we hope so. Thanks again to Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell joining the program for the last segment, talking about some of the county issues. Very interesting when it comes to the smoking laws and them trying to equate the smoking of cigarettes to smoking of vaping. We'll talk about that in a little bit in hour number 3 if you want to as well. Plus, we'll get back to when it comes to the Twitter account with Roseanne Barr. Get your thoughts on the whole canceling of Roseanne, what the tweet actually was, and where we go from here. Plus, Kim Kardashian making a trip to the White House. Yeah, never thought that one would actually happen. Her and her husband Kanye West, which Kanye West, as you know, being a Trump supporter and getting heat for that one. Kim Kardashian, not the biggest fan of Trump, but supporting her husband and now going to the White House to try and be the political activist that she all of a sudden has become. That and a lot more. We got open lines to you, hour number 3. This is your show. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here on KQAM.
It's time for Reason.
If you have a $200, $300, $400 cell phone bill every month for you and the family, then you have a problem because we're paying you what the market actually sets for you and for your job skills. We're paying market value for you, and you're not going to manipulate the market on what the value of your job is just because you can't figure out your own personal budget. That's on you. That's not on me. We need to remember that we need to take on personal responsibility.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. What up? Welcome in. It is a Wednesday. Can you believe at the end of the week's almost here? It is the pre-Friday celebration, which I think is going to be the new name for the Wednesday program. Welcome in. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, you do have the Facebook Live feed that's up and running. Facebook.com/1480 KQAM. Leave a comment, which many people have done this morning. We appreciate that. Ask a question. Say good morning. Call me a jerk. I don't really care one way or another. The last segment, which we appreciate Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner, coming in, or not coming in studio, but joining us and talking about some of the county issues. We had talked about vaping, and then as we talk about vaping, then we see the vape smoke rise in the studio. And Rick Everett swinging in here. Good morning, sir.
What's going on, monkey boy?
Hey, what's happening? Hey, I got to ask you, and I wanted to bring you in here because
Why
of that.
don't you ever put me on camera? I'm cute.
I could have put you on camera. I guess I just didn't pop up the camera thing in time.
So do it now.
I can't now because it's transitioned over.
Oh,
it's in the
goodness.
it's in the
You're
on,
ashamed of
it's
me,
the
aren't you?
on-air display
You're
as opposed to the
ashamed of
production
me.
display. Yeah, see, there you go. But you could. It's okay because you can still see the smoke.
I'll send some your way right now.
There you go. There you go. So that's you'll see the poof. It'll look like we have a smoked machine in here as well. So there you are. It's almost like Goldberg coming out of WWE as he walks in, right out of the smoke. That's kind of how that works.
Where are you going with all this?
The way I was going with this. The last half hour, they were talking about
Bring me in
from
to
the county
ridicule
issue.
me. You don't put me on camera.
See, the last half hour, the county is talking about their new smoking policies.
Okay.
And where some of the progressives, I assume, some of the progressive-minded individuals are looking at equalizing to where they want to ban smoking of vaping the same way they ban smoking of cigarettes in many public areas.
That's wrong.
Because it looks apparently like smoke and cigarettes, so therefore it's possibly just as harmful, and therefore they don't want that to be around the public. So
all right,
they
Cheech,
want to ban.
let me ask you this, Cheech. If it looks like Labrador, does it necessarily mean it's Labrador?
Hey, see, that's the thing. That's not my comment. That is the comment of those wanting to ban vaping the same way they do as banning smoking.
Right.
So I wanted to get a vapor's perspective on this, and if they've said that you're not allowed to smoke vaping the same places you're not allowed to as smoking, I don't understand why. Like, what's the harmful aspects of vaping?
Well, I mean, I guess I can only speak on my own behalf and of my own beliefs.
Right.
Okay. So this July will mark 2 years that I have been cigarette free. Okay.
Which is crazy because I remember how much you used to smoke.
I had issues with smoking. I was a heavy smoker. In fact, when we had the show on from 5 to 6 at night on KQAM, the Fab 5 at 5.
Yes.
You know, I'd be in here, and when we'd go to commercial break, as soon as commercial break was on, I was outside in the back balcony.
Which was a 3-minute break, which you could pound out just about a full cigarette.
Just about a full
in that
cigarette.
3 minute. And you would do that every break, all 3 breaks of the hour.
So, yeah, I mean, I was a heavy smoker. And I had 2 or 3 attempts at quitting smoking and switching to vape that were unsuccessful or short-lived. Okay. But July will mark 2 years.
That's awesome.
That I haven't smoked. And so the benefits I noticed right away is I don't stink like a cigarette. And I can smell things better. You know, I don't have that smoker's cough anymore. Mm-hmm. So I like that. The vape isn't flawless, though.
Oh, sure.
you have to kind of like, for me, it goes without saying, I vape a lot. Okay.
The news studio continuously looks like the smoke machine.
But, instead of that nasty aura of cigarettes, people walk in and they're smelling either.
Hey, it tastes like grape juice.
Yeah, they're smelling peach or they're smelling strawberry or whatever. Now, it doesn't come without a cost. It's expensive to vape.
Sure.
And now with, the government wasn't far in catching up with it and taxing the nicotine and everything else.
Oh, sure.
But I mean, there's also this thing where you have to kind of hunt and find the vape product that doesn't irritate. Some of them irritate. Okay. I'm not a sport vapor. I'm not a kid vapor who's looking for the coolest flavor or whatever. Give me my nicotine fix. That's the deal.
So let me ask you this then. As someone going back to when you remember doing the transition from smoking cigarettes to smoking the vapor, and the vaping, if they started passing something like this now and said, yeah, you know what, but you're still going to be restrained to smoking the vape just as much as you're going to be restricted smoking cigarettes, would that deter you from doing the transition, or would you still do that just for the health risks alone or the health benefits alone compared to the two? Or is it, you know what, if you're still going to kick me outside on the porch just because you want me to, not smoke in there, period, even if it's just water vapor smoke floating around, it's really not worth doing the change?
No, it's still worth doing the change.
Still
because here's
worth
the deal. The vape juice, a cigarette it's not the nicotine in a cigarette that kills people at all.
Right.
It's all of the other
garbage
crap
that's in there
that creates carcinogens and has the tar build up in your lungs and all this and that.
Sure.
So no, I'd still encourage the change. And, if there's restrictions, just like when you're a smoker, okay, you have to, if you're working an 8-hour day, most places, by law, if you're working an 8-hour day, you get a 15-minute break somewhere in there. You get a half-hour lunch and you get another 15-minute break.
Right.
That's kind of how it works. So I've heard.
Theoretically.
In those jobs, you can't just get up and go out and smoke whenever you want. So, I mean, they're doing something to either, get over it, or maybe they got a nicotine lozenge like Nicorette gum or something like that. But,
right.
But now, I'm not an advocate for this, nor would I never encourage it. Would I ever encourage it? But I've heard rumors of people like going to the bathroom and accidentally having a vape discharge in that bathroom and nobody being the wiser because it probably smells like an air freshener or something. I mean, that could happen.
Well, if we're going to look at the benefits of it, health or risks or whatever, I mean, because you're right, the cigarettes, it's all the junk that's in the cigarette, and it's not necessarily the actual tobacco and the nicotine in there, which is why I enjoy smoking cigars, because it's nothing more than just the tobacco leaf rolled up, and it's very natural, and it's a very great thing to smoke because I enjoy that.
Do you inhale it?
No, you don't. You don't inhale.
See, and that's
cigars.
a big difference right there.
But
I don't know. I don't smoke cigars.
I love cigars, but no, you don't inhale it because
I know the kids buy those leaves and do something funny with them.
Well, you do something funny with those. Well, I've tried inhaling cigars in college, and those make you very sick. I learned by experience on that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Did you throw up?
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. Let me just say, we were working with the college Republicans, and we were putting out posters and stuff and saying, hey, come to our meeting and whatever. And I was walking down the sidewalk smoking my cigar, thinking I was, Mr. Cool because, I'm smoking a big old stogie, and inhaled this whole thing after about 45 minutes. And I'm literally right outside my dorm sitting on the grass hurling for about 45 minutes just because I was so dizzy and sick. So anyway, you don't smoke cigars, but
you don't inhale.
Or you don't inhale cigars, but I mean, they still say that they could lead to potentially mouth or throat cancer, that sort of thing as well. So there's still the risk there. But between me personally is the cigar and pipe tobacco, because I love smoking the pipe, not the pipe of like marijuana, but pipe with pipe tobacco, and then hookah. And hookah is just like the vapor, where it's vapor and water.
It's not vapor. Just like the vapor.
It is just like water vapor. It is totally just like
Andrew,
that.
Stop. Listen, with a hookah, it's my understanding you're burning something, right?
Yeah, you're burning the tobacco to go into the bowl of water at the bottom.
Okay, equate that to a freaking bong, okay? Because that's the same thing. You're still pulling smoke into you. There's no smoke with vapor.
But it's not smoke. It's water vapor. The same thing.
Really?
It is. You burn it at the top, and it burns the tobacco, and it goes down into the bowl of water, and then you inhale the water vapor that boils out of there.
So there's no chemicals in that.
No.
Really? Okay. So then why, when people smoke pot through a bong that
Because
goes
that's
down
pot.
into the water and comes into, well, you just said there's no chemicals in it.
That's pot. That's pot. There's a difference between, again, the tobacco leaf that's just flavored, the tobacco leaf up on top, like the vapor here. It's vaping, but in a bong form.
That's like saying if somebody passes gas and you pull a sleeve over your nose, you're not going to smell it. That's not right.
No, the hookah. Someone please defend me on this one. No, smoking the hookah with the tobacco
no phone
flavor
calls.
is
phone calls.
just like it is the bong form of the vaping. But the marijuana, you're right. I mean, it's the marijuana. So,
back to my point, though.
Yes.
You're pulling this hookah, which is on fire,
Right.
through water into your lungs.
Sure.
And you're saying there's no chemicals.
No.
Is THC not a chemical?
What? But again, that's pot. That's marijuana.
Well, dude, you burn something, there's residuals.
But what's in there with the tobacco leaf in the hookah? With normal hookah, not marijuana hookah. It's just tobacco leaf.
Smoke. And that's the part of the cigarette that gets people, is the stuff that's in the smoke. Yeah.
See the hookah. I see the hookah the same as. Although they do say that smoking hookah apparently for an hour is equivalent to smoking an entire pack of cigarettes.
Oh my
which
word.
I do not agree with, and I do not understand.
See, I wouldn't
that
even
one,
know what it tastes like. I mean, to me,
tastes
it looks like a very sophisticated multi-person bong. That's my thought.
But without the marijuana, because we don't go that far.
Right.
Your thoughts on that? 316-721-8255. If you do vape,
Your
or if you used
thoughts
to
on
smoke,
this. Andy puts out a call to listeners.
I'm
Your
curious.
calls on this, on the most conservative station in the state of Kansas. Your thoughts on this.
I am curious not only about the difference between hookah smoking and vaping, but I am curious about if you have transitioned from smoking to vaping, if we do end up changing laws to where it's going to be just as restricted on where you're allowed to vape as you are smoking, is it really worth the transition?
I will say this before we bow out of this segment. God bless Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell, okay?
Yes.
Because he has always been an advocate in the corner of people who are quitting smoking to go to vape.
Sure.
He's always been very cognizant of the health benefits of that, as well as all the other benefits of not smoking. So
Sure.
Kudos, Jim Howell.
No, it's a great conversation to have, and I'm glad he did bring it up when we talk about some of the laws in the county with there, because I think that even smoking cigarettes, that ban and those restrictions are way too crazy when it comes to, and as limited, conservative-minded individuals that we are, I don't like the fact that we try and demonize cigarette smokers to the degree that we do when it comes to smoking at certain venues and places. I just don't agree with that.
Meanwhile, while we're talking about the ability to pull smoke through water and not absorb any chemicals, could you please pronounce this word for me?
What's that?
Wiffle.
Wiffle? A waffle?
Wiffle. A wiffle ball.
Oh my God, it is a waffle. It's a wiffle ball. Wiffle ball. 20 minutes past the hour. We'll open up lines to you when we come back. This is the Voice of Reason.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll.
25 minutes past the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Right here on the Big Talker KQAM. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. Very much so. We love it. We appreciate it. And it's open lines to you for the rest of the program. 316-721-8255. The phones are lighting up. Your comments on the whole vaping, hookah, smoking ordinances and laws and craziness that ensues with that. Let's go to the phones. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Good morning, Eddie. How are you, sir?
I am fine, and is Rick Everett still there?
He is not in studio. No, he went back to vaping in his own new studio.
I see. Well, no offense to him or to anyone else, but I absolutely will not eat in any restaurant that vaping is allowed. Vaping is, yes, sir. Vaping, I don't want that cloud of smoke or what a vape coming up while I'm eating.
Very interesting. Even if it is like, you know, it's not necessarily the health factors of it. It's just the nuisance of having the smoke and having to deal with it.
That's right. And the deal of it is smoking and vaping are equal in my mind and in a lot of people's minds, okay?
Interesting.
And yes, and another thing is the fact that you would be shocked at the number of high school kids that are now vaping because they think it's really cute.
Mm-hmm.
You realize? And vaping leads to smoking. Smoking is vaping, and et cetera, like that. And that's the only comment I really want to make. No vaping in the public.
No vaping. Well, I
no
will
vaping at work, period.
Sure. I do agree with you that, I mean, a lot of the high school kids obviously are doing the vaping because it's the new hip retro thing that's led to more people. And they've actually read the stories and the studies. And I know Laura Ingram's talked about this, where it's actually increased young adults smoking by 80% as opposed to people actually getting rid of and stopping smoking because now they're going just towards strictly the vaping thing. So there is that hazard to it. It's an interesting comment that you make, though. So let me ask you this. When it comes to the vaping, you don't like it in the restaurants, you don't like it in the work environment at all. Do you think it should be left up to the private businesses like the restaurants or the businesses to say, yeah, you're going to be allowed to vape or smoke at your desk, or you're going to be allowed to vape or smoke within the restaurant or whatever? Or should it be up to a government ordinance that says, no, you're not allowed to do that and you need to take it outside?
Vaping is equal to smoking. So if smoking is not allowed, then vaping is not allowed, period.
Period. Interesting comment. All right. I appreciate that very much, Eddie. I'd probably disagree personally a little bit on that, but I appreciate that very much. Just not care for the vaping at all in any way, shape, or form. And I get it. It makes sense. I think, and this goes back to both, I think both smoking and vaping, whether you're smoking cigarettes or vaping, I think it should be up to the private business and the private club that actually wants to allow it or not allow it. And then we get to choose as the consumer on whether we're actually going to go there or not. So if one restaurant says, yeah, you know what, come on in, you're going to be allowed to smoke, you're going to be allowed to vape, just in here, you can do whatever you want to because that's your prerogative. That's what you want to do. And then you get to decide whether you want to go to that restaurant or not. Or another restaurant that says, yeah, I don't want either one of them. You got to take it outside. You're not going to be allowed to smoke on the premises, whether it is vaping or cigarettes, either one of them. We just don't want it in here. I think it should be up to the private business. I was really upset, and I remember this actually when I was out in Garden City 7-8 years ago, and we ended up passing the ordinance here in Kansas as a statewide law to where even private clubs like the Elks Club or some of the VA and some of these other private organizations were going to have to abide by those smoking laws, smoking rules as well, to where they couldn't smoke not only just in the building, but even within like 50 or 100 feet from the front door sort of thing. And I thought that was totally absurd personally. Totally absurd. If you want to smoke as a private club, then you have all the right to do so, and I don't like the government telling me what to do on that front. And then that would play into Eddie's argument of, it's if they allow it, then guess what? I'm just not going to be there because I don't like it, and I'm not going to support that business in that sense, or that private club in that sense. So I think it would be up to them. Got lots more callers on the line. Your thoughts on that? Kind of an interesting conversation. Bottom of the hour news coming up. Stay here. This is The Voice of Reason.
I can see myself tearing up the road faster than any other boy has ever gone.
Are you a Hoosier-holic?
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Call in now at 721-8255. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Wrapping up the program today. I have noticed something, ladies and gentlemen. It just kind of struck me. This show is definitely a millennial discussion talking point show. Come on. What have we talked about today? We've talked about tweets and vaping. There it is. Twitter accounts, Twitter comments, tweeting accounts, and vaping. Yeah, definitely a millennial show. Welcome back in 316-721-8255, 316. Or it's just the times. And that's the new movement of today where we're concerned about vaping with water vapor, and we're concerned about tweeting, where now public statements and official statements and violations of the First Amendment are done by Twitter. And then everybody gets all riled up when someone does a tweet. If you heard Roseanne Barr, the show no longer going to be ABC, within like a half hour of the comment of the tweet, which, again, not the brightest comment to make, but comedians trying to be funny, ha, wasn't really funny. They ended up canceling Roseanne after her comments that were made on Twitter against one of Barack Obama's former advisors. And now everybody's up in arms about it. You know what? Not a violation of the First Amendment. If she wants to do that, then she knows the potential repercussions of that, and they happened. The problem is that we definitely have a double standard. We don't have very fair, equal laws in these sorts of things to where we would punish the other side doing the same thing to Donald Trump. Oh, I don't know, calling him Hitler or fascist, or calling him a Nazi, or calling him a sexist, or calling him a Cheeto, or any of these sorts of things. You know, but calling him derogatory remarks in that sense, it's okay for them to do, and they get to keep their jobs, by the way, on their public appearances and on their televised program shows. But, you know, a tweet like that, nope, done, over, cancel it, all out. Your thoughts on that? Plus, if you have any comments on the vaping versus the cigarettes, should we make vaping as regulated as we do with cigarettes, and how do we go about doing so? Or should we start loosening up the girdle a little bit, in my opinion, when it comes to both laws, both with vaping and with cigarettes? Again, I'm one of those to where if you want to do it, it's up to your prerogative when it comes to a private institute, a private business, a restaurant, a retail store, whatever. If you want to go and you want to vape and they allow that to vape, then all the power to you. If you want to smoke cigarettes, all the power to you. I really didn't like the fact that we even removed smoking cigarettes in bars, in clubs. Come on, give me a break. If you're out, you know, having a good time drinking and doing your thing, what's the problem with it? I really don't see it. If you choose to do so, all the power to you. And if you don't like that, just don't go to that club. It's really that simple. Your thoughts on this and more. It's open lines to you for the last half hour. 316-721-8255, 316-721. Talk line number 1. Good morning. What's your name? Yes.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
My smoker's cough there. I mean, bong hit or what?
Yeah. There we are. How are you, sir? What's going on?
Excuse me. That's water vapor.
Yeah, see?
In your earlier segment, you're kind of asking if anybody knows anybody that has no ID.
Sure.
And I can prove it. I don't have an ID, and I can prove it. I have an ID about netting.
See, there it is. That's well, you know, you got me on that one. So, but we admit, I have not yet seen a single person that I've run into in any way, shape, or that doesn't have any form of identification when it comes to a driver's license, when it comes to a social security card, when it comes to a birth certificate, when it comes to something, just a state ID that just says, you know, I am who I am, and here's my ID number and whatever. I've never seen a single person that does not have some type of ID, and then they would be able to walk into, by the way, the state government, say, you know, I want to register to be able to vote with that ID.
I agree. Me too. I don't know anyone that.
So why is it then when many of the left side of the aisle that despises Secretary of State Chris Kobach and his voter ID laws, saying that it's racist because poor minorities are not able to get IDs and therefore they're not able to get registered to vote, so we're silencing their vote? Is that racist?
Well, I ain't got no idea about that, but one of my favorite movie lines, and it happens to be Clint Eastwood movie.
Okay.
Probably one of his most obscure movies, but perhaps one of his better ones, I think. I got a lot of movie lines I love, but in Honky Tonk Man, Clint Eastwood, this young girl wants to go traveling with him. No, you can't go. Well, the next day he's driving, I think through Texas, and the highway patrol pulls him over and talking to him, and the patrolman hears a bang, bang coming from the trunk. He walks around, pulls open the trunk lid, and there's that young girl. She stashed herself in the trunk of his car. And officer says, "You got any ID?" And she's getting out of the trunk. Says, "ID about what?"
ID about what? Mm-hmm. I like that.
Talk to you later, bud. Bye.
I appreciate the call very much. So 316-721-85. That's about the most of a lack of idea that anybody has in the nation right now. Because if you try and say that you don't have an identification form in any way, shape, or form, then you're probably lying or you just haven't tried. That's really what it comes down to. And if you missed the conversation later on, there was, of course, the discussion from Secretary of State Chris Kobach in his Twitter account where the media had a frenzy and a heyday about trying to end in-state tuition for illegal immigrants, which I made the comment, of course, of if we know that they're illegal, why are we allowing them into the college in the first place? But then, of course, it started on a tirade of tweets that I got involved with and individuals when it came to, well, of course they're racist and they're discriminatory because poor people and poor minorities, of course, because we apparently progressives assume that just minorities are poor and that they can't afford any type of ID, that it's discriminatory against them and a pay-to-play access to democracy because you actually have to pay for your form of identification, and some people cannot afford that. And I have yet to find a single person that does not have some form of ID. So if you know of anybody, I mean, obviously, a lot of people just don't have an ID about anything, but if they don't have a form of identification in some way, shape, or form, I'd really want to hear from you because I've yet to hear about somebody that does not have some form of identification and then therefore be able to go and get registered to vote and get their registration card. It boggles the mind how they try and twist this into irrelevant issues that really don't make any sense. And if they do make sense to somebody, then it's a vast minority of the population. Not minority as in race, but minority as in population size of people who they're trying to make into a big issue. For example, like the transgender issue. How many people do you know that are actually legitimately have gender issues because biologically they were born with no gender or with double gender issues or whatever they were based on the genitalia that they have? How much of the population actually has that problem? And yet we hear on the social front that that's pretty much everybody, which is why that we can't assume somebody's gender. We need to ask about somebody's gender. We need to ask them what they prefer their gender actually is because they apparently have the choice because everybody in society apparently has now had biological issues to where when they were born, they have both sets of gender forms, and therefore they can choose based on supplementing themselves with hormones and doing some type of operation in order to make that gender actually happen. That happens how many times in society? And yet that's the talking point now in the mainstream. I started off this segment kind of joking about how we're in the millennial times and how we're talking about millennial issues today, especially with the Twitter account and with vaping. But if you'll really look at it, the big current issues of today are really about ridiculous, absurd millennial problems. We're concerned about a fascist being in the White House when that's not the case. We're concerned about a gender identification, and we've even read to you on the air and had some fun with it with the gender-neutral pronouns, because apparently that's a really big, important issue that people need to be concerned about and be worried about. And I don't get it. I just don't understand it. We're concerned about vaping now because water vapor and this vaping smoke is apparently a really bad nuisance. And if some people don't like it, then fine, don't be around it. But so what? That's the problems that we're concerned about today? How many millennials and how many progressive millennials especially are talking about budgetary problems? How many are talking about securing the border? How many are talking about national security? How many are talking about preserving our rights? How many are talking about preserving the Second Amendment? How many are talking about the real issues that we need to be focused on? Instead, we're concerned about what? A gender that you can choose from? Having your safe space so you don't get offended, being able to vape, having a Twitter account, and that being a violation of your First Amendment if someone says that you're not allowed to tweet on their personal page and you're not allowed to actually comment on their personal page, then that's a violation of the First Amendment. This is where we're at today. And then, of course, all these ridiculous arguments that I like to get involved in, and apparently on Twitter and on social media, and so many other people like to do. And now everything's on Twitter. Oh, hey, what'd they say on the Twitter? Who cares what they said on the Twitter? It's 160 characters. You can't say what you really want to say on Twitter unless you have nothing more than a bumper sticker argument that you actually have, and you have no depth to your discussion. And when I try to call out the lack of in-depthness and the lack of substance in their discussion, then they call me a terrible, horrible human being because I actually tried to unveil the layers of the onion and go a little bit deeper than what you could post on a bumper sticker. That's the discussion today. We have truly transformed America and the current events into a millennial issue, millennial issues, what the millennials have brought to the table. And I'm not categorizing as all millennials are terrible. Obviously, I'm one of them, and there are many conservative millennials that think this stuff's absurd. But if you've noticed, listen to the other talk show hosts too. The current events happening today, the things that people are talking about, are what they said on Twitter, or ridiculous things about, vaping or gender identification. Stuff that we wouldn't even fathom would have been a discussion 20, 30, 50 years ago. But yet, here they are. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones again. Line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, Andy, I just called back in because you weren't picking up any calls, and I'd rather listen to the callers that call in than listen to you preach to us.
Well, they're more than welcome to call in if they want to. I mean, I definitely am going to give my opinion in my monologue on the certain issues, but you're more than welcome to chime in about whatever's kind of burning the fire today.
And I appreciate that, sir.
Hey, there we are. Yep.
Bye.
All right. Appreciate the call. 316-721-8255. Let's take a break. Wrapping up the show today. Kind of a fun one today. A lot of different topics that have been brought up. Roseanne, of course, if you have not heard, of course, not having her show any longer because of the racist tweet that she made. Again, I don't know. People are calling it racist. I don't know if it's racist or not because the individual's not black. She's actually Iranian from the Middle East, so apparently it's racist against Middle Eastern people. I'm not quite sure, but she's not having the show anymore, and some people claiming violation of the First Amendment on her. Not the case. We'll get your thoughts on that when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
By the way, I don't know if you remember this guy or not. Former Kansas Governor Sam Brownback, who is now the ambassador at large for international religious freedom for the Trump administration. Story came out according to the Topeka Capital Journal. Ex-Kansas Governor Sam Brownback looser and more relaxed in his new job, as he was a little uptight as governor. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe because media outlets like yours and many others demonized him for every time he sneezed and actually walked to the bathroom, called him a bigot and a terrible, horrible human being, and could never make anybody content or happy in any way, shape, or form. So, gee, I wonder why he's a little more relaxed when he's not in the public light every single day for his job and everything that he does. So, a big shocker, right? I have no idea why he's possibly a little more relaxed, be happy doing what he's doing, fighting for religious freedom, and then actually not having the media come after him every single day. Craziness. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phone, shall we? Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
It's Wallace.
What's going on, Wallace? How are you?
I'm going to take on Roseanne Barr.
Okay.
Well, here's my take on it. It's interesting because, we've seen people like James Carville referred to as Serpent Head, and nobody calls him, nobody's running around going, you're racist. We've seen, Eric Holder, he looks like a sloth.
Sure.
Nobody sits there and, calls people are racist for saying that. But here's the thing. What Roseanne said was politically stupid.
Right.
I mean, what an absolute stupid thing to say. However, let's break it down. What did she say? She correlated Valerie Jarrett, whose entire family has deep-seated radical ties to communists and just Islamic radicals. Her entire family does. Father, grandfather, it's deep-seated. You got to wonder if she was behind $150 billion in cash on pallets going to the Iranians. She's got some pretty questionable ties. Now, let's look at the Planet of the Apes question. Valerie Jarrett is a avowed leftist progressive. What do progressives believe in? Evolution. According to them, we're all descendants of apes. So, if you really boil it down, I mean,
And I'm with you. I'm trying to decipher what it actually meant and what she was referencing here, because she's not black, so therefore it's not African American people are like apes, and look at the Planet of the Apes, and it's not like that kind of comment, which is the way some took it, because she's not black. What I'm trying to understand if it's the Muslim Brotherhood and the Planet of the Apes, is it because you're right, like the ties to the radical Islamists that she has within her family, and in the Planet of the Apes maybe that it's a totally different world to where we don't understand their they're lingual because they're nuts, or they're because they totally speak a different language and we can't interpret what they're saying as a progressive?
Well,
I mean, is that the kind of separation of what she's trying to get at here? I don't understand what she was going for.
Look, if she looks, maybe she has an appearance that looks like one of the simians. I don't know. I just don't really look at Valerie Jarrett. It hurts my eyes. But by the same token, what's worse? Saying that, your family has deep-seated communist and Muslim ties, and that you look like, one semblance of a primate, or trying to associate half the country with a genocidal maniac and a murderer and a butcher, the Nazi Party and Adolf Hitler.
Right.
I got to tell you, if you believe in evolution and you believe you came from apes, well, they just pointed out you came from your ancestors. I thought leftists were all about, don't you believe in science? That's their science.
Well, and again,
Darwin.
And again, as you mentioned, the tweet was done in bad taste, and she shouldn't have done something because it's a stupid tweet to kind of make, even if you're trying to be a comedian and make a joke and take a shot at somebody. I mean, the political field right now, it's where you make one mistake like that and they just eat you alive with it. So she shouldn't have done it. And with ABC coming after her, I mean, I don't blame them. The problem I have is, why don't we hold that same standard to anybody, like you mentioned, to where they can literally not do it on their private tweet, but go on to public television on their shows and say that Donald Trump is an evil fascist pig, and that Donald Trump is an evil Hitler and Nazi, and that we should blow up the White House. And when they can say that on their public television shows, but yet she does it on her private tweet, they punish her more so than they do with them.
Well, Andy, would you be offended if I say that you look like the result if an angel had nookie with a hummingbird? Would that upset you?
Well, I'll have to process that one to see what that would actually look like first.
There you go. Yeah, like I said, I think it was politically stupid to say, but I'm just saying, if this is what she believes in evolution, she believes that her ancestors came from apes. I don't. But so now she's trying to deny science, that her ancestors, according to her belief, came from apes. So I'm just saying, it's just kind of a factual hypocrisy.
She's just tying it all in. I appreciate it, Wallace, very much. Interesting take to that. Again, I've been trying to decipher. Maybe that's what it is right there. I don't know. Or maybe it's just Planet of the Apes. You're speaking a whole different language. We don't quite get what your culture's like because, I don't know, you're wanting to be different and you're not trying to assimilate. I don't know what it was. It was a bad taste. It shouldn't have been done. And if they punish her, fine. But why don't we hold the same standard for, I don't know, everybody with those kind of comments?